Hello, my name is Euro and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. In today's video, I'll be showing you my Flaming Fist build, which is a fun little build that's inspired by the Flaming Fist that can be found in the game. This character will be a pure fighter battlemaster, which is going to focus around debuffing enemies with our battlemaster maneuvers, while also providing supportive capabilities to our allies, such as, for example, allowing them to maneuver around without triggering opportunity attacks, or also giving our allies an extra attack for their reaction, so they will trade their reaction for an extra attack during their turn, while we also use up some of our own resources to do it. But anyway, let's get into the character creation. So for our race, we're going with a human. Now, from my observations, majority of the Flaming Fists in the game are humans, although you can find half-elves, elves, dwarves, and thieves, but it's completely up to you. You could go with pretty much any race, it doesn't really matter too much. So you're fully free to go there, as of course this is just a final build. It doesn't rely on a race. Then for the racial features, humans have actually quite a nice one, which is the human versatility. This gives you an additional skill to be proficient in. We also are able to carry a little bit more. We increase our carry weight by a quarter, which is nice for lugging around barrels or, well, grenades. The Civil Militia gives us a bunch of armor and weapon proficiencies, though this won't matter too much for us since we will be a fighter, so we'll have proficiency with all weapons and all armors. And we also have the standard racial speed of 30 feet per turn. For our class, we're going as a fighter. This gives us the second win ability, which is a 1d10 plus fighter level heal, so at level 12 it's going to be 1d10 plus 12, which is quite handy. And then for our fighting style, you will have a choice between one of the three. My suggestion will be going with dueling. So what this does is when we're wielding a melee weapon that is not two-handed or versatile in one hand, and no weapon in the other, you deal additional 2 damage with that weapon. You can carry a shield with your free hand and still gain this bonus. So what this seems to tell you is if you use a versatile weapon, this won't work with it, but if you lose a longsword and then you carry a shield, the longsword will also activate dueling. So it can be a versatile weapon, you just need to carry a shield, so you make it a one-handed weapon instead of a two-handed weapon. Since versatile weapons, if you don't have a shield, they are then two-handed. So just so you know that. For the other two, defense is nice here if you want to get +1 to armor class, and you could also then take, for example, if you prefer the protection skill or feature. What this does is when you have a shield, you impose disadvantage on an attack against your allies. When you are within 5 feet, you must be able to see the attacker. So between these three, I would say are the ones that I would suggest you to take, but I went with dueling as getting that little extra damage is always quite nice. For our ability points, we're going with the 17 strength, 14 dexterity, 16 constitution, and 10 wisdom. 17 strength is the heal for, of course, the increased combat capabilities, as we will be a primarily strength-based fighter. This is also going to help us with our mobility since we're able to jump further. Dexterity 14 is namely here for extra initiative, although in the early game and the mid game we can also carry medium armor, so we gain extra +2 armor class from it as well, so there's that. Then 16 constitution mainly to help us with extra HP, so we are a little bit more tanky. And then lastly we have wisdom 10. This is here to help us with the wisdom saving throws, so we don't have a -1. You could potentially, if you prefer, put it into charisma, if this is, for example, your main phase of the party, and if you prefer having charisma for dialogues. But my personal preference is to go with extra wisdom. For these skills, I do have proficiency in insight and persuasion from my background, which is the guild artisan. You could go with any background you may prefer. It's completely up to you. It doesn't really matter too much. Always go with your preferred role-playing, or if you just have a favorite one instead. Then for our other skills, now since we do gain an extra skill as a human, we have a bunch of options here. If this is your main phase of the party, I would potentially suggest getting intimidation or one of the other dialogue skills to help the character in dialogue. But since for me this was not main phase of the party, so this character won't be doing a lot of dialogue, or if you also will do similar, suggestions I would suggest you to take is potential acrobatics or athletics or investigation. Investigation is a quite useful skill to have, since there are some areas you will need to do investigating on to basically see them or spot them. So I will put this into investigation. Now for the other two skill proficiencies here, I have them in perception and survival. I was just going with at least one character in your party to have survival, so you can find those buried caches. Also, perception is very useful, very important, because it helps you find those hidden or obstructed buttons, levers, and similar items. So I will leave it in perception. Out of the other ones we have here, animal handling is not too useful. It doesn't pop up too much and it's not that great. Same thing with history. History is okay, but there isn't much really roles you will find. So out of all of these, investigation, insight, perception, and survival are the ones that are most common, I would say, outside of course sleight of hand for lockpicking. All right, so at level 2 we gain our action surge, and we can move on to level 3. At level 3 we unlock our subclass, and here we're going to go with the Well Master. This is going to be a quite nice one that's going to be providing supportive buffs to our allies and debuffs for enemy or crowd controls. So for the first 3 maneuvers I would suggest you take is the disarming attack, the trip attack, and riposte. Disarming attack is great because if the enemy fails and they don't have the permanently armed feature, you make them drop their weapon, you can then pick that weapon up, and they're basically then going to be forced to punch you unless they have a ranged weapon that they want to use. Trip attack is great because if the enemy fails, you trip them and then you gain advantage against them, because of course melee characters gain advantage against prone enemies. And then riposte is a great one. If a hostile creature misses an attack against you, you can use your reaction to deliver a powerful strike that deals additional 1d8 damage, so you can get a little bit of extra damage on them as a punishment for, well, trying to attack you. For our first feat at level 4, we're going to go with the Bullet Improvement +2 into Strength. This is going to help our combat prowess and also mobility, since you're able to jump further. Now, you could at this point or level 5 deal with Anti-Ethel to get an additional ability point into Strength, although this character does not require it, as we will be getting Heavy Armor Master at some point, so we don't actually need to get the Anti-Ethel's hair, so you could save that Anti-Ethel's hair for some other character instead. At level 5 we gain our extra attack, and we can move on to level 6. At level 6 we unlock an additional feat, and here you could choose, if you are going to be rolling around in heavy armor, you could go get Heavy Armor Master immediately. What this does is going to increase your strength by 1, so we're going to round it up to a nice 20. You also reduce incoming damage from non-magical attacks that deal slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning by 3. So if they're magical, this won't work, but if they're not magical, which a lot of enemies in the game don't have magical weapons, this is going to reduce their damage by 3. If instead you are running out with medium armor and you would have a wasted feat with Heavy Armor Master, then I would suggest going with the Savage Attacker, since this is going to help increase your damage with your melee attacks overall. But for this example, I'm gonna go with Heavy Armor Master immediately. At level 7 we unlock 2 additional maneuvers, and here what I would suggest is the Commando Strike and the Maneuvering Attack. So what Commando Strike does is direct an ally to strike a foe. The ally loses a reaction on their next turn to make a weapon attack. So you use your action and bonus action, although this action is considered an attack. So if you use this on an ally and if you have extra attack, this will trigger an extra attack, so you can still attack afterwards, although you won't have a bonus action. So this one is here namely for, again, those thematic roleplay purposes, where we're gonna direct an ally to attack. This is great on characters who have, for example, Great Weapon Master, who would deal a lot more damage than you would with your own action attack, or for one of your attacks, right? So this is a pretty good one for that. You just have to make sure that it's a melee character, since this does say uses a reaction to make a weapon attack. This is actually always a melee weapon attack. It's not a, you can't use it for a range attack. It's only for melee, so keep that in mind. Then here we have the Maneuvering Attack. So what it does is, when you hit an enemy, when you attack an enemy and hit them, you can use Forced Maneuver on an ally to increase their movement speed. What it does is, the ally is immune to opportunity attacks, and also their speed is increased by 50%. So this is helpful for somebody like Gale to run away from enemies that want to pin him down and deal damage to him, since he's a squishy wizard. At level 8 we get our third feat, and here we're going to be taking Savage Attacker. This is going to help increase our damage overall, since what it does is, when you make a melee weapon attack, you roll your damage die twice and use the high result. At level 9 we get the Indomitable feat or feature. What it does is, basically, if you fail a saving throw, you can use this to roll again and use the new result, potentially saving us from being crowd controlled by, for example, hold person or fear or stunned, which is quite nice if it works. At level 10 we basically get improved combat superiority, so our superiority dies increase from 1d8 to 1d10, so now we deal potentially a little bit of extra damage with our maneuvers. And now for the last 2 maneuvers, you could take, what I would suggest is going for the Goading Attack and the Menacing Attack. This is going to be great maneuvers for crowd controlling enemies. The menacing attack is going to prevent them from moving at all, because if they're fighting, they cannot move. They also have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, which is quite nice. Or you could use Goading At. Now, since this character on the next level will get improved extra attack, so we'll be able to attack 3 to 6 times if we use Action Surge, we can potentially goad 3 or 6 enemies to attack us instead of our allies. So we can use this to potentially, if they're melee characters, group up on us for a big fireball or a similar attack. So Goading Attack is quite handy for that. You could use Rally for the roleplay, but since it's quite late in the game, and it only gives 8 temporary hit points, it doesn't really scale well with the character level ups. This would be a lot better if it scaled up with levels, but since it's only 8 HP, it's not really worth it in this late of a game. At level 11, we get our extra attack, and we can move on to level 12. At level 12, we get our 4th and last feat, and here we're going to take Sentinel. So what Sentinel is going to do for us is going to, when an enemy within melee range attacks an ally, you can use your reaction to make a weapon attack against that enemy. Target must not have a Sentinel feat. So if your ally has Sentinel feat, this won't work. If they don't have Sentinel feat, it will work. You get advantage on opportunity attacks, and when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, it can no longer move for the rest of its turn. So a great one for pinning enemies down to prevent them from running away from you. Alright, so that is it for the levels. I'll now see you in the equipment section. Alright, so here we are in the equipment section, so let's start with our headgear. Here we have the Float Helldusk Helmet. The wielder has a +2 bonus to saving throws against spells, and we have Constitution +1. So this is mainly the helmet we went with was one of the thematic ones that looks something like the Flaming Fist would wear. So we're going with this. Having extra saving throws against spells is quite useful though. For the alternatives, you go with the Whole Lance Helmet. When an enemy misses you, they have to make a Dexterity saving throw or take 1d4 fire damage, or not fire damage, radiant damage. You could also go with the Haste Helm. At start of combat, the wearer gains momentum for 3 turns. What this does is, excuse me, for every stack of momentum, you gain extra 5 feet of movement. So this can help you with, basically, at the first turn of combat, you'll have 15 feet, and then it's gonna diminish by 5 every turn afterwards. For the cloak, we're going with the Cloak of Displacement. So when this cloak activates at the beginning of your turn, basically it gives you the effects of blur. Enemies have disadvantage on attackers against you. The effect lasts until the wearer takes damage, although I believe it reactivates on the next turn again. So a quite nice defensive cloak. For the alternatives, you could take the Cinder Moth Cloak. A creature that damages the wearer within 7 feet receives burning, although there is a saving throw for this, so they can potentially save and not receive burning, even though the cloak itself doesn't say that. And then we have the Cloak of Protection. Armor class is Citrus +1. As always, this is a cloak that pretty much will work on anybody because it's just flat out stat bonuses. For the armor, we're going with the Embalmed Plate of the Marshal. All incoming damage is used by 2. We have fire resistance and +2 to saving throws, so with our helmet we have a +4. We also get fire shield once per short rest, so we can choose whether we want to deal 2d8 fire or cold damage to our enemies when they hit us with a melee attack. A very thematic, very good armor actually, because of that incoming damage reduced by 2, as well as fire damage resistance. For the alternative, you could take the Flame Enameled Armor, which is basically the same thing. It just has, if you factor in the +2 from Dexterity, it has 1 less armor class, and instead of having the Magical Plate, it has the Seldom Caught Unawareness. It gives you +2 bonus to initiative rolls. It has the same feature of the Endurance by Fire, so you have resistance to fire damage and bonus to saving throws. You also then get the Fire Shield Warm, so you don't get to choose whether cold or warm. You only get the fire variant, which is also quite good. So choice between these two, of course, is up to you. They're both Flaming Fist themes, so they're very fitting for this character. For the early game, until you get either of those 2 other armors, you could use something like the Adamantine Splint Armor or any other heavy or medium armor you may prefer, since this character is quite versatile there. Though if you went with Heavy Armor Master feat at level 6, then of course you'll probably want to just run with Heavy Armor to gain the benefits of the Heavy Armor Master. For the gloves, we're going with the Gauntlets of the War Master. Targets have disadvantage on saving throws against your maneuver and weapon actions. This is a very powerful set of gloves, since of course now all of our menacing attacks, strip attacks, disarm attacks will give enemies disadvantage, and they will be much more likely to fail. This also works with something like Heartstopper and the Concussive Smash, I believe. It doesn't say here, but Heartstopper works. As you can see, hide maneuver, there is a disadvantage on saving throws against your maneuver weapon actions. So we can potentially cause them chest trauma. With what the chest trauma does is a disadvantage on Constitution saving throws and has 1 fewer actions. For the alternatives, you could take the gloves of the Growling Underdog, the wear against advantage in melee attacks while surrounded by 2 or more foes. A very powerful set of gloves that actually is not classified as armor, so you can use this on characters that don't have medium armor proficiency. For the boots, we're going with the Boots of Persistence. You gain freedom of movement and long strider. What freedom of movement does is actually quite nice, since this makes it so that difficult terrain does not slow you down, so it doesn't impede your speed. And you also can't be paralyzed or restrained, so you are immune to some of the crowd controlling effects. For the alternatives, you could take the Silver Sea Shoes. Your jumping distance is increased by 5 feet, so extra maneuverability. Or, as always, the probably best boots in the game, the Disintegrate Nightwalkers. You can't be enwebbed, entangled, ensnared, and you can slip on grease or ice, and you gain Misty Step once per short rest, which is a quite powerful maneuverability spell. Speaking of Misty Step, we are going with the Amulet of Misty Step, so this is going to help us even more with our mobility. We gain 1 Misty Step per short rest, which is quite powerful. For the alternatives, you could take the Face Amulet's Amulet or the Amulet of the Harpers, for the same reason, which is the advantage on Wisdom saving throws they provide. Face Amulet's Amulet does provide you with Intelligence and Charisma advantage on saving throws as well. So if you want advantage on those, you could go with that. Or you could take the Amulet of Harpers, which on top of advantage on Wisdom saving throws, it gives you 1 shield per long rest as a reaction, which is quite nice. For our rings, now this character itself doesn't really revolve or doesn't really have any rings that are must-have on him, so any ring you might have lying around you can put on this character, but some examples I would have put on this character are such as the Acoustic Band. Your weapon attacks the additional 2 acid damage, and then crushes the ring for extra movement speed. You could also take something like Rope Protection. Same ordeal as the Cloak of Protection, just flat out stat increases, which is nice. Or even something like the Ring of Regeneration, which gives you extra hit points every time it's your turn. So it heals you every time it's your turn. For the weapons, we're going with the Raven Guard's Scourger. This weapon is a enchantment +2, which is pretty good. It gives you the 1 Commander Strike class action, and it gives you the unique to the Morning Stars, which is the Heartstopper, which we read earlier with the chest trauma. Makes enemies have disadvantage on Constitution saving throws, and they have 1 fewer actions removed by healing. Now, this weapon is a pure thematic purpose choice. You could also use Raven Guard's Longswords, Duke Raven Guard Longswords. It's basically the same thing, although Duke Raven Guard's Longsword also gives you, I believe, +2 to Charisma, but it has the Commander Strike. Now, this Commander Strike is different from the one you gain from your Battle Master. So, the Battle Master Commander Strike uses a weapon action. So, if you use Commander Strike on an ally, you will trigger your extra attack so you can attack afterwards. The Commander Strike from the Morning Star consumes your action and bonus action, and you basically can't do anything else on that turn unless you use Action Surge. So it is a quite bad weapon action, unless you really want to boost your ally. If, let's say, I don't know, you are out of range or this character is wounded and you just want to boost your ally and run away, you could use this then. But yeah, if you just want to deal damage, you would probably want to avoid this. I'd like to believe this is a bug because it's normally supposed to trigger an extra attack, but it doesn't, so just keep that in mind. For the alternatives, a nice one is actually, you can find it next to the Twist of Fortune. When you roll a 2 or less with this weapon damage die, you roll it, take a new result. So you have a pseudo Savage Attacker with this weapon, so it generally should increase your damage to be higher than, well, you shouldn't roll 1 or 2 on it, so that's quite nice feature of this weapon. And it does give you the blood money effect, so strike greedily, dealing additional 4 piercing damage per 300 gold that target possesses gold will be consumed. I do have a build that is revolving around this weapon action fully, which is a quite fun one, and it can make a lot of boss fights, well, if they have pockets and if you can pickpocket them, a lot of boss fights quite easy. Well, basically you one-shot them, so there's that. For another alternative, you can find in Act 3, which is a lot better than the Raven Guard Scourger, is the Sacred Star. On a hit, inflict 1 turn of radiant orb upon the target. 100 creatures struck by this weapon are possibly turned. You also get the Dawn Burst Strike. Deal additional radiant damage equal to a proficiency bonus. On a hit, light erupts around you in a 10-feet area. Enemies in light must succeed at DC 13 Constitution saving throw or become blinded. So a very powerful crowd control effect in an AoE around you. Then for our shield, we're going with the Shield of Scorching Reprisal. Reprisal? Reprisal. One of those two. Anyway, we get Shin Bash, which is of course a reaction that if an enemy hits us, we can use our reaction to knock them prone if they fail the saving throw. We also gain resistance to fire damage, and we gain Blazing Retaliation. Huddle behind your shield, increase your armor class by 1, and reap Scorching Retaliation upon attackers who miss you. When an attacker misses you with a melee attack, they take 1d6 fire damage. So what you can do is combine the shield effect with the armor effect. So then whether an enemy misses you or hits you, they will take fire damage regardless, or cold damage in this case if you do switch to fire shield cold. So you can make a very powerful sort of, if you try to hit me, you'll get punished regardless combination with the combination of these two weapon and armor actions. Then for our ranged weapons, we're going with the Hellrider Longbow. Main purpose of this will be as a stat stick, since we do gain +3 to initiative with this weapon. We also gain advantage on perception checks, which is quite useful. Fiendish Fire, which encases a target, potentially one target per turn with Fairy Fire, is nice if we do use this as a ranged weapon, but primarily we're going to be smacking enemies with our Morning Stars. For the alternatives, you can take the Boar of Awareness, and also Hunting Shortbow and the Gandriel's Inspiration are here for the same purpose, which is to give you advantage against monsters type enemies. Alright, so that is it for the comment section. I will now see you in the combat showcase. Alright, so here we are the Flaming Fist barracks for yet another Baldur showcase. So before combat started, I didn't activate actually any boosts. Just I have free movement from my boots, long stride from my boots, and then displaced from our cloak. So just to show that the Commander Strike from our Battlemaster should trigger extra attack and shouldn't waste your both action and bonus action for nothing, let's use this on our Paladin here, so that they will then have an extra attack, as you can see here, as a reaction, which is quite nice. Then we did trigger extra attack, so now we have 2 attacks extra here. So let's use Heartstopper on this guy here. We have quite high accuracy, since we do gain a little bit of extra attack from our gloves, and since we have also, you can potentially get 24 strength if you get the Mirror of Loss and a Rush of Blodra's potion of Everlasting Vigor, or Strength and Vigor. Let's see if we can get a Caster Smash on this guy. So he did save, which is fine. We can just use our Action Surge, and then we can start goading enemies, since they have this advantage, and then potentially club them up on us. Let's take that opportunity attack. He should miss, since we have high armor class and also effects of blur. And so yeah, there you go. Generally, that's pretty how it goes. Try to crowd control enemies with goading attack, menacing strike, maneuvering attack. Any of these how do you call them, Battlemaster abilities you may have, you may think that are useful. And I try to use Commander Strike every combat, especially on a character like this who has Great Weapon Master. So we have ridiculously high damage, and then on top of that we gain an additional attack with this character. So now they can strike, well, 3 times, plus if we used, we don't have Action Surge in this, but if we had Action Surge, there would be another 2 attacks. So yeah, there you go. That is it for the build. Hope you enjoyed. I'd appreciate if you leave the like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content, and I'll see you in the next one.